Hooked in with sound. Thanks, Makai. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. Welcome to my office. Welcome to one of the views of an incredible reminder of the power of the city coming together with community members to decide that we want to do things a little bit differently, but then having long-term impacts and ones that we are still trying to think about today. Faneuil Hall and this parcel of land is actually owned by the city of, owned by the BPDA or the city?
It's BPDA.
Owned by the BPDA. This parcel of land is publicly owned, and it was very much blighted decades ago in Boston, and this agency worked to ensure that a revitalization effort would happen, bringing tourists and visitors, and we have many reminders today about needing to refresh that mission, even just across the street, needing to make sure that some of the businesses represented in the most visible places actually reflect our community, reflect our entrepreneurs of color, and that we can see those resources going to the city of Boston as well. So I look out on this every day and think about 50 years from now, what decisions are we making, what impact will the decisions that we're making have on our residents? And that is the work of our departments that think about planning, development, and zoning, the growth of our city and the shaping of our neighborhoods and the day-to-day lives of not just this generation of residents, but generations in the future. We're joined here by our, this says new here, you're not that new anymore, right? We're joined here by our Chief of Planning and Director of the BPDA, Arthur Jemison. We are joined by our Chief of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion, Shagun Irawu, our Chief of Housing for the city, Sheila Dillon, our Deputy Chief of Development and Transformation, Devin Quirk, so new she has not yet technically started, Deputy Chief of Urban Design, Diana Fernandez-Bibo, Colleen Fonseca, Executive Director of the Builders of Color Coalition, and my incredible colleague, City Councilor Tanya Fernandes-Anderson as well, who will speak right after me. Oh, and Councilor Erin Murphy as well. So I wanted to start a little bit about on our broader vision for development and growth in our city, and highlighting a new policy that this team has put together and that the BPDA board will be voting on later today. Boston is a growing city. We want to keep it that way, and we know there are many challenges that families in our city are facing, and businesses in our city are facing too. There's much to celebrate, and our leadership is known across the world in fields like healthcare and innovation, technology, education, and the arts. We are proud of this growth, but we need to make sure that the success and the prosperity and opportunities in Boston extend to everyone in our communities and our neighborhoods, truly creating common wealth. Since Chief Jemison joined the city, we've been doing that work to connect to more of our residents and neighborhoods with the benefits of our growth. And one of the ways that we're excited about formalizing how we measure, think, and understand this is through a new policy that the BPDA board will be voting on tonight, focusing on DEI disclosure, diversity, equity, and inclusion disclosure. The policy will call on large developers proposing new projects to disclose their plans to include women and people of color in their projects in every part of their teams. At the end of the day, our residents, developers, and businesses all want the same thing. We want to see Boston thriving, growing, sustainably, and connecting opportunity to our residents, and particularly our young people. This is about ensuring that success is spread across our communities while incentivizing sustainable growth and creating more transparent, predictable processes. Much of what we can celebrate in the city in recent projects like Nubian Ascend or other publicly owned parcels that have become great partnerships that are putting value right back into our communities with very high participation from entrepreneurs and contractors of color, have been because when it comes to city-owned land that we are then partnering for development, we have much more authority and jurisdiction to add those requirements. This would broaden the requirement to give that information and think carefully and intentionally about building teams and the representation and reflection of our communities in all large-scale projects, not just ones that are publicly owned or come from public land. So this policy is just one of many steps we're taking with this new team to reimagine what development, growth, planning looks like here in our city. And I will shortly invite up Councillor Fernandes-Anderson, followed by Chief Jemison and the rest of the leadership team to say more about our vision, but just want to make sure that we are reaching more of our residents as well first. Buenos días y gracias a todos por venir. Me alegra mucho estar aquí para compartir algunas noticias sobre nuestro trabajo con el BPDA y el desarrollo en Boston. Me acompaña esta mañana nuestro nuevo jefe de planificación y director de la BPDA, Arthur Jemison, junto con los jefes de oportunidad económica, con Irubu, de vivienda, Sheila Dillon, Devin Quirk, que sirve como jefe adjunto de desarrollo y transformación, y Diana Fernández Vibo, que se unió a nosotros el mes pasado, el mes próximo, como jefe adjunto de diseño urbano. Ellos hablarán también en un momento, pero quería empezar por hablar un poco acerca de nuestra visión más amplia para el desarrollo aquí en Boston y destacar una nueva y emocionante regla que la Junta de BPDA va a votar esta noche. Boston es una ciudad creciente. Somos líderes en la innovación de la salud y la tecnología, en la educación y el arte. Estamos orgullosos de nuestro crecimiento, pero tenemos que hacer más para asegurar que ese crecimiento está apoyando a la prosperidad colectiva. Desde que el jefe Jemison se unió a la ciudad, hemos estado haciendo ese trabajo para conectar a nuestros residentes y barrios con los beneficios de nuestro crecimiento. Una de las formas emocionantes de hacer eso es a través de una nueva regla de divulgación de diversidad, equidad e inclusión que la Junta del BPDA votará esta noche. La regla exigirá a los grandes constructores que revelen sus planes para incluir a los niveles de participación de mujeres y personas de color en sus proyectos. A fin de cuentas, nuestros residentes, constructores y empresas, todos quieren lo mismo. Todos queremos que Boston prospere y tenga éxito. Se trata de garantizar que el éxito se extienda por nuestras comunidades, mientras que se incentiva el crecimiento sostenible y se crean unos procesos más transparentes y predecibles. Esta regla de divulgación de diversidad, equidad e inclusión es solo uno de los muchos pasos que estamos dando para reimaginar cómo es el desarrollo aquí en nuestra ciudad. Y ahora invita la concejal Tania Fernández-Anderson y después jefe Jemison y al resto del equipo de liderazgo. So now, Councillor Tania Fernandes-Anderson, Councillor Anderson, then Councillor Murphy, and then the rest of the team.
Thank you, Mayor Wu. Good morning, Tania Fernandes-Anderson, District 7 City Councilor. Thank you so much, Mayor Wu, for including me in this press conference. Like any other policy, I think that it's important that we collaborate or partner with city departments. I look forward to working with Chief Jemison as well as everyone else in departments administration, Mayor Wu, in order for us to create access to community. I think with policy then comes access, and in order to do that, we have to empower people by way of educating and also developing tools so that people can better navigate these systems. So I'm very excited for this policy. I look forward to really dig deep into it, and I'm quite sure my colleagues here would agree that District 7 has deeply invested in combing through the inventory, looking at policies, protocols, programs, and I would say choices or racial practices that have been implemented for far too long that has not actually manifested racial equity in District 7. So I am invested in the work. I look forward to doing more collaboration and looking at, again, how to do this in a very intentional way. I really appreciate this. This is extremely transformative, as you know, first in the country, and just excited that you have an administration and as well as departments, a new chief of planning that is willing and able to begin this work. Thank you so much, and I look forward to answering questions if you have any.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Erin Murphy, your at-large city councilor, and I am here to uplift the mayor's new policy, which is very exciting, and support Sheila Dillon and everyone in the mayor's office of housing, and of course the BPDA, everyone who works up there, and our new chief. It's great to have you on board. And any policy that we're pushing forward that's equitable and transparent is so important. So thank you for keeping your word, Mayor Wu, that we're going to continue to have policies roll out this way. In my role on the council, I'm going to make sure that we're continuing to push for policies on our end also and support all of this great work. So thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm going to read the order one time, then you don't have to hear from me again. It's going to be Chief Jemison, Chief Idowu, Chief Dillon, Colleen, Devin, and Diana.
Well, good morning, everyone. Great to see you. It's an exciting day. Today we're announcing a new policy that's going to be on the BPDA board agenda later this afternoon. The new policy is going to introduce diversity, equity, and inclusion into the review process for large private development projects. The policy is going to be in front of the board tonight, and it's going to request that proponents disclose a DEI plan whenever the developer proposes a project over 20,000 square feet. The plan from the proponent or the developer, we call the proponents as part of our Article 80 process, will include economic participation, employment, and management roles for people of color, women, and certified MWBEs within the scope of the project. It's responsive to our commitment to advancing economic development opportunities in the real estate sector for everyone. BPDA would collect these plans to better understand the impact that these firms are having in the real estate market, help us think carefully about how to increase MWBE participation over time, and evaluate strategies to drive further impact. The policy work is representative of a number of things that we're doing in the agency now, some of which my colleagues will talk about that we're excited about. I also want to recognize my staff that's here today and offer just a couple of other notes. When you think about planning and development in our city, and you think about the fact that years ago there was a rusty old overpass that's now underground, and you think about some of the amazing developments that our development community is putting together around the city, I know that this development community has the ideas and ingenuity to figure out how to advance this goal, and I really want to call on them and every part of them, every part of the industry, to say, I want Bostonians to look at every building going up in the city and know that each building and its economic impact is part of making people an equitable wealth distribution in our community. We can do this. We've done so many things together with the development community, so I really want this new partnership with them, this policy to represent a new way for us to work together to grow this city and make it even stronger. And with that, I think I get to introduce my Deputy Chief for Transformation, Devin Kirk. I'm sorry.
They were doing Shagun first.
Shagun. I get to introduce my colleague, Carter and Prime. No matter how many times I read it, no one said. No, so Shagun's been crucial and a great thought partner for me in working on this policy, along with a great staff we've got. Chief, would you mind coming up?
Thank you very much, Arthur. And so good morning. Great to see all of you. There is a proverb, and I'd get in trouble with my staff if I didn't say a proverb today. There is a proverb that says, to talk much and arrive nowhere is the same as climbing a tree to catch a fish. And when it comes to issues around racial equity, around wealth creation, a long time in this city, we've been climbing many a redwood. talking about how much we care about these issues, but not delivering on that promise, on that commitment. And what I'm incredibly proud of the team at the Boston Planning and Development Agency, the leadership of Mayor Wu, and the entire team behind and front and throughout this building and throughout this city is that we are delivering on a promise that Boston has made to its citizens, but has not always followed through on. When you read reports from groups like Citigroup a few years ago saying that in the last 20 years this country has left $16 trillion on the table because of our inability to invest in communities of color, when you read the Mass Taxpayer Foundation report published last year in April showing that if Massachusetts alone were to close the racial wealth gap tomorrow, just between black and white families, we'd add $5 billion to our own state economy. When you read reports from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston describing that growing, that yawning racial wealth gap, you know that there's a lot of work that we need to do, but we also know that there's a tremendous amount of talent and wealth in our communities that we are leaving on the table and not delivering on those investments. And so this particular policy that we're putting forward, the BPDA has already been doing this on public projects, on land that we already own, and has taken the model that we often talk about a step forward, not just on pre-construction and construction, but what we cared about, particularly in my previous role, the operations of these development projects when they're done, ensuring that while we see black and brown people and women working on these projects, helping to create these projects, we want to see those same people operating these projects when they're done and bringing their families and friends to that area. So this particular policy expands that to development all across this city, all the cranes that we see in the skies. We want to make sure that businesses owned by people of color and women are participating in these projects. This is also a way for our partners in the development community to show the work that they have been doing. We know that there are so many that have been, even just recent projects that folks have put in bids on, have shown that they are demonstrating the ability to go out and find businesses owned by people of color and women to support these projects. We want to see that all across the city, and we appreciate not just the work of the BPDA, but also advocates like the Builders of Color Coalition. I'm happy that Colleen is here today, and other advocates who could not be here today, whether it's Amplify or BECMA, Foundation for Business Equity, and others who have for a long time been advocating for such policies to be enacted. So I want to thank you again, Arthur, and you, Mayor Wu, and the entire team here for delivering on a promise that was made. And so it's our work in the Economic Opportunity and Inclusion Cabinet in partnership with my brother here, Arthur, and the team here from BPDA. I would call there's like 20 people here from BPDA, so I don't want to take up time calling everyone's name, but to ensure that we are helping the development community be successful. This is not something where we're saying, you go do it. We stand here ready to support the development community, to utilize those businesses that we know are out there, who are prepared, who have the capacity and the willingness to help build the city that they love and cherish so much. So with that, I think now I bring over my sister in service, Sheila Dillon.
Thank you. Thank you. Very well said. It's very exciting to be here today, and I really want to thank everyone behind me for putting this forward. It's a very, very, very solid idea. And when you ask for information, when you ask for developers or people coming before the city for relief and benefit, asking information, key information, it's not a requirement, but it gets all development teams, the whole industry, to stop and think about what we're trying to accomplish together. So I think the information collected is going to be invaluable to show what we're doing right and what we need to do more of. So I'm really looking forward to being really getting the information and working with my colleagues to understand how we can do more. I also have had this dream for many years that real estate should benefit more people in the city of Boston, right? It's a wonderful city. It's a growing city. It's a dynamic city. And I think for too long, real estate development hasn't benefited enough neighborhoods, enough families, enough businesses. So I think today is a really good step in that direction, that real estate, the economic power of real estate can help many, many more people here in the city. And finally, just speaking from the heart here, it's a new day in the city. It's a new day at City Hall. The BPDA calls me like every week, every day, looking for staff's opinion, my opinion on things. We're talking to each other. Transportation, economic development, housing. We're all working so collaboratively with the BPDA right now and all putting our best thinking forward on developments and ideas for the future of this city. So I'm excited to be here, and I want to thank you, everyone so much. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, and good morning. My name is Colleen Fonseca, and I serve as a proud executive director for the Builders of Color Coalition. As a network, we represent nearly 500 diverse real estate professionals, and today we are pleased to see the city moving forward on advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in the commercial real estate sector. This proposed policy stands to empower the development community to highlight and promote innovative solutions to transform real estate into an industry of opportunity and diversity. This is an opportune time for the industry to uplift and expand on purposeful and intentional strategies that have already begun, have been implemented, and that they intend to do so in the future. Thank you to Mayor Michelle Wu, Chief Arthur Jemison, and the many willing partners engaged in this process to forge a more equitable path to prosperity across a more represented cross-section of our population here in Boston. We look forward to seeing the bold and creative solutions both the city and the commercial real estate community will advance to increase economic prosperity for the residents of Boston. Thank you all so much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Devin Quirk, Deputy Chief Development and Transformation at the BPDA. I want to start by thanking Colleen and her team who have helped us craft the diversity and inclusion approach that we're already using on our public real estate, which today is weighted at 25% of our overall valuation when we're bidding public projects, and it's been used on 18 public real estate projects to date. We wouldn't have been here without you, so thank you very much for your support. Today's announcement is on including DEI in Article 80 is important for two very big reasons. First, as you've already heard, the policy itself will help us continue to build a more inclusive and equitable city. And to the best of our knowledge, we are the first city in the nation to include an analysis of DEI in private real estate development as part of the permitting process. That, in and of itself, is a transformational achievement. But secondly, I want to highlight that this policy is indicative of the approach we'll be taking to the future of the BPDA. Mayor Wu has charged us with putting social equity, environmental resilience, and affordable housing at the center of everything that we do in planning and development. In addition, we know that Bostonians desire a development process that is more transparent, more predictable, and more accountable. Today's DEI policy is bringing daylight to the participation of minority and women-owned businesses in Boston's real estate development industry. It's doing so in a predictable way and a transparent way that provides those teams that are doing great things with a platform to share their stories about their achievements. And it's also establishing accountability for raising the bar across every large-scale development in our city. This is exactly the type of innovative policy and values-driven reform that the mayor has asked us to make to this agency. And since I'm here, I want to share a couple other updates on where we are in the transformation space. First off, along the lines of equity, along with equity, the mayor's asked us to make resilience a central tenet of our work. Last month, the BPDA board approved a policy that would lead to the decarbonization of 13 million square feet of BPDA real estate. This would happen by 2030 for the assets we directly control and by 2040 for our ground lease properties. This is an important example of our leadership on mitigating the impacts of climate change and something you should expect to hear from us more on in the future. And while resilience, equity, and affordability are central themes of our planning work, these projects these values are only impactful when they're implemented into real projects in Boston's neighborhoods. And for that reason, at Chief Jemison's direction, our team has been both accelerating existing planning efforts across our city that are tied to these themes, and also communicating with major developers in the city that we expect the development process to comply with our planning priorities. And finally, I'm also excited to share that we've been hard at work building a transformation team here at the BPDA. Part of our theory of change is that we cannot expect the same people that are running the core functions of the agency to also have the capacity to plan and execute all the major strategic and operational changes ahead. The fact that we're resourcing transformation separately from day-to-day work demonstrates we are serious about people-centric planning and advancing transparency, predictability, and accountability in everything we do. So change won't happen every night, but we're excited to be pushing ahead, and we'll keep you updated as we go. And I'm excited to introduce Diana Fernandez, who is our new Deputy Chief of Urban Design.
Okay, I'm going to break what I just said because I really want to make sure Diana gets a proper introduction because, first of all, she's not even officially started yet, but coming early, and we are so excited. I know, Arthur modeled this. We are so excited to create this role, a place where there would be vision around how all of this fits together and how the ways in which our residents connect with and feel the outcomes and the fruits of the work of this team. I wasn't sure we were going to find someone who could actually meet everything that we were looking for. And then, amazingly, Diana agreed to join our team. She's a landscape architect, she's a mom, and she truly brings the vision, big picture, sweeping passion for what design could be, and shares a connection around the little details that can signal most of all who feels welcome, who belongs in a neighborhood, in a space, and how we're not just going to think about the buildings and the size and the impacts from the built environment, but everything in between that really stitches it all together. Diana.
Thank you so much, Mayor Wu. What an introduction. I'm honored to be here, and thank you for having me. I'm delighted to sort of start the work that we're embarking upon here with the agency and to elevate the importance of urban design in our city. I'm looking forward to working closely with Chief Jameson, Chief Quirk, Deputy Chief Quirk, to really deliver on a vision that really brings together all of these amazing ideas and this energy that is really fueling the future of our city, and to also look closely at the BPDA processes around urban design that can be improved over time. My hope is to create a comprehensive and cohesive vision for the city, really focusing on a urban design vision that's rooted in place, a vision that represents the inherent diversity of our city across all of the neighborhoods within our beautiful city. And I strongly believe in the power of diversity, not only within policy, but how it lands on the ground, and particularly looking at how diversity, equity, and inclusion can start to make its way into all parts of our planning and design process, and to start to create opportunities for Bostonians to see themselves in every detail across our city. And from, the day-to-day, whether you're commuting to work or taking your kids to the park or, the really special weekend trips with your family, I believe in creating places of belonging for our residents and improving those daily lived experiences as a part of my mission and what we'll be doing at the BPDA. I'm also incredibly excited about building upon the incredible climate change work that is happening. Devin mentioned a lot of the resiliency work underway, and I believe in positioning urban design as an opportunity to establish a heterogeneous design vision. That is a vision that's really centered on celebrating characteristics of diversity to improve resilience of our communities, not just at an environmental level, but also socially. How we can start to really address some of these issues, everything from the heat waves we've been having all the way to sea level rise, really looking at how our urban fabric can facilitate solutions to many of the crises that we're facing in our city. So together, I'm really excited to work with this incredible leadership team and the mayor to really realize this vision, to lead with planning-led development, and to ensure that we're really thinking about every single little detail, from facades to your sidewalks to park spaces, creating a space for everyone in the city so that we can all feel a sense of belonging and empathize with each other and build a really healthy democracy into our future. Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, what happens if the city doesn't like a development plan? If you guys say that this isn't good enough, what then?
And specifically about the DEI policy, or?
Sorry.
So our goal throughout city government is to set the vision for where we're headed, prove that it makes a difference when residents get involved, and try to move fastest of all on the things that are immediately within our control. And so, as you heard, the things that are immediately within the city's control, we are moving and shaking on. The contracts that are going out, the projects that are publicly owned that we can add those heightened requirements on, because there isn't the full, sort of cities in Massachusetts don't have the full legal authority to add those heightened restrictions across the board entirely. This will give us really great information on where we need to make a difference. That could mean, is it a certain type of subcontractor that we're seeing the biggest gaps in? Is it a certain size of project that we see the need for more resources? How do we then go and build those pipelines in partnership with the private sector, community members, developers, to boost that up and raise this issue at the statewide level or beyond? So this will, you can't manage what you're not measuring, and so this will at least signal and force all of us to be incredibly intentional about what matters in this process, that it's not just about height and floor area ratio, but who is benefiting and what that impact will feel like on the ground. Do you want to comment more specifically?
Sure. So, yeah, well, I might also say, I know that the development community can do this. I mean, they do it when they're asked. And I think I've just got the highest expectations and know that they're going to innovate in this space the way that they have in so many others. So I guess maybe I'll be disappointed, but I don't expect to be. I expect to be excited about the kind of responses we get, because again, the kind of response we've gotten, we've canvassed different groups of people, is eagerness to be part of this work, eagerness to engage in discussion about how to do it well, and so I'm really, I think we're going to get, I'm expecting great things.
For the public city RFPs, I know that DEI is, 25% of how they're scored is eventually when this, if the goal is to incorporate this into zoning, is that 25% kind of figure something we could expect for the private side too? Like, I don't know, how would you score maybe as part of a PNF?
So
and how that works through?
I think an important distinction to point out is that when we run a public bid for public land, it's inherently a competition, so there's a scoring factor involved. When we are doing a regulatory process for private development, that's a different process. There's no scoring of a submission. It's about, are you providing all the information to inform the community about what's going on? There's a clear distinction between public land and private land. I want to clarify.
Right now, we don't have the legal authority to be able to do that, but we are trying wherever possible as a city to walk the walk as well, and ourselves in the projects that we're taking on, in the contracts that we're giving out outside of real estate and construction as well, to show what we believe is the minimum standard that everyone should be hitting. And again, this isn't about carving out additional or separate payments or contributions for a separate, connecting our growth to everyone in our city benefits all of us. It makes our growth more sustainable. It makes Boston a more attractive and vibrant place to live. The biggest factor that I hear from our large companies and CEOs everywhere is that in this moment where workforce is so fluid and mobile, and there's remote options in a growing number of industries, what it looks like on the ground and how where people want to live, where people feel and see themselves reflected, where we have the most access to opportunity, in fact, is what will ensure that our economy can keep growing.
Mayor, you've now been in office for 8-9 months. Chief Jemison, you've been for a few months. What is the big picture vision of the BPDA in terms of its existence over the next few years? What do you envision now?
Should I get that chart out that we were just discussing this right before? Okay, I'll start, and then I'm sure the chief will jump into. We know that the structures that we have now were created decades ago in a very urgent moment for the city of Boston and for cities across the country, when the challenges we were facing then very intensely were around blight, right? What used to be right outside our window here, flight from the city, the need to draw back investment very quickly. We are and no longer, we are not only in a different situation facing different challenges, but the parts of the city where we are having those conversations and using the same tools that were created in the 1960s are somewhat of a mismatch today. We are in just as intense and urgent moment in other big challenges, and you heard them outlined here: affordability, resiliency, equity. We need the ability to move on big issues, but that has to be transparent. It has to be in partnership with community members and accountable to our residents. It has to be predictable for our community members at large. And so that is the goal, that we are working our way through several short-term options and bigger picture legal proposals to the state, for example, that would get us to the bigger picture change. Basically, we need planning-led development. So we need to separate out some structures and put more emphasis earlier in the process for residents to participate. And we need to be able to move fast and do a lot more on climate resiliency and equity and affordability.
Do you plan on there being a BPDA at the end of your term?
I hope we can move things fast. We'll see how long state processes take. We will have even more robust planning in the city of Boston by the end of the term. We will have even more supported and equitable growth and development in the city by the end of the term. And we will figure out whether or not the state legislature will pass the exact laws that we hope we would need to send up to formalize things within however many days are left in the term. We will find a way to start actualizing that and implementing it in the day-to-day as well.
Is the goal for that?
I think the mayor answered it pretty completely. I don't really have that much to add to it. I think it's an answer we get asked a lot, so I don't know if I would add too much, but obviously we're still open to your questions.
Well, in your new role as chief of planning, a new role for the city of Boston, would the goal maybe be, if BPDA were to not exist, would it be to maybe transfer employment to a new planning office? Like how would that work?
I guess I'd say I appreciate all the questions, and I think that they're all reasonable and appropriate. I think we're almost focused at some level on some of the wrong things. I feel like we're trying to focus on how we have planning-led development. What's the fastest way to do that with the most effectiveness? Abolishing the BPDA it's out there. You've seen it. You're responding to it. But what we're trying to do is take everything that was in that report, distill it down, and create a series of steps. I don't think it's good to speculate. I think there'll be a time where we actually lay those things out, and we'll have a great and robust dialogue like this one. But today isn't that day. I think the mayor's answered it really well.
Yeah, and I'll frame it a slightly different way, because I think that's exactly right. On every issue, we are looking to be focused on action and outcomes, what this will mean for residents in our neighborhoods day by day. And what we've seen with how the structures that have been set up, the organizational structures from several decades ago, is that they haven't been delivering the types of outcomes in the urgency that our residents need on the ground. And so in some ways, thinking just about where people sit on different floors or what the lines look like on boxes of an org chart isn't the leading issue. It's what do we want to accomplish and deliver, and then what is the best structure to actually make that happen efficiently and effectively. We need more planning to happen in the city of Boston. So I think sometimes people hear the push to change our way of doing business as an erasure of efforts that we, in fact, badly need. We need planning. We need to manage development in our city. Those processes probably need more resources in some ways, but where that, how that fits and how that will be redirected towards resiliency, affordability, and equity will likely come under a different legal form at some point. But we hope that it won't matter to residents what the actual name is and where people are sitting, because they will start to feel it right away of a new way of doing business in Boston.
Ideally, it would be under a different format.
Yes.
When it comes to those plans, though,
Okay, I'm getting to this.
Why
don't we talk after this happens? Right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.